Now you
This meeting is being recorded.
Thanks. And I was just going to say, this meeting is going to be recorded. So welcome everybody. B. Chatfield from the Parks Department. This is for the recording. And welcome to Norwell Street Park. What we are calling for the meantime, Norwell Street Park, the park that is currently under design at the corner of Norwell Street and Park Street in Dorchester. And we are very excited to have our second community meeting tonight. I want to introduce Miguel Moreno, who is here to provide interpretation.
Buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es Miguel Moreno, yo voy a ser el intérprete en español. Si usted necesita asistencia para escuchar esta reunión en el idioma español, si está conectado desde una computadora, le va a aparecer el símbolo de globo en forma de tierra y con la palabra interpretación usted da clic y selecciona español y luego da enter. Si usted está conectado desde un teléfono, le va a aparecer en la parte de abajo de su teléfono una barra y en la parte derecha le va a salir la opción de más, son 3 puntitos, usted da clic ahí, se le abre una ventana y se selecciona servicio de interpretación en el idioma español. Si necesita mayor asistencia, déjenme saber por medio del chat. Gracias.
You want me to start it now, Miguel?
Yeah.
Gracias, Miguel. So here we are, Norwell Street Park, Community Meeting 2. If we could go to the next slide. Basic Zoom tips for people who are not accustomed to Zoom. You can turn off your microphone, mute yourself, and turn off your video if you don't feel like participating visually. During the presentation, we ask that you hold your questions or comments. And if you want to put questions in the chat, we will answer some of those as we go if they're sort of quick one-off questions. But if they are questions to be, more discussion in depth, we will address those after the presentation. If you're joining via phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Otherwise, add questions to the chat, or you can raise your hand in Zoom down at the bottom of the menu bar. We could go to the next slide. So here's our agenda for the night. We're going to do a quick project overview. The design team is going to discuss what we heard from Community Meeting 1 and our survey. And then we're going to go over our project background and goals, the design concepts that we've come up with, and then talk to you guys about what you think. And the goal for tonight is not that we vote for a winning scheme, but it's that to figure out if we're moving in the right direction. This is our second meeting of 3. And the third meeting is going to be when we come back with what we hope is something like the final design. So this meeting is really like, we're giving you a bunch of options and we want to hear what feels like a good elements to add to the final design. And then we'll have closing remarks and next steps. So next slide. Here we have our project team. I'm B. Chatfield, project manager. Here's my contact info. Any questions, any thoughts, please call me, please email me. Christine Brandeo is running the meeting tonight from Parks. She is our outreach coordinator, making sure everything happens as smoothly as possible. We've got Jen Ng and Hannah Ketterer is here tonight from the design team. Clap for Martin Design Group, they are fantastic. Denise Dos Santos has been very helpful from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, pointing us towards specific elements that we should pay attention to. And then Kelly Bowling and Lupe Garcia from the Trust for Public Land were very helpful in the initial stages of this project, getting everything sort of established. And I wasn't there during the initial stages. So anyway, here's a lot of the people, and this is just a small fraction of who started this project off. We're also here tonight with the coalition, lots of members in the room tonight, I'm sure. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of contributions. So let's keep moving on to the next slide. project schedule and funding. We had our first community meeting. It was in person at the park back in November. And we met a lot of people, heard a lot of good feedback, got a lot of good ideas. And now here we are at community meeting 2 in May. Our goal here is to get a lot of great feedback and ideas so that we can pull together our final schematic design. So we would be running that by you in July or August of this summer. And then if we're moving in the right direction, we would start our project documentation at that point, which is just contract documents, specifications, drawings, trying to make this buildable. That means we would go out to construction, we would close the site down and start tearing everything up in preparation for the park in spring of 2023. And then we would complete our project in fall. So we would have a new park in fall of 2023. We've got our estimated construction cost in there too. Sorry, $785,000 is increased a little bit because we have a slightly expanded area that we're working with, which is very exciting. So if we move ahead, this is just a quick snapshot of the sort of way that we approach park design at the Parks Department. Lots of different components that we're trying to incorporate here. We've got the City of Boston priorities, safety guidelines and regulatory guidelines, community input, which is what you guys are giving us here, and then the parks and recreation goals. And we bring all of those things together and we ask the design team to work their magic and give us all of their input and create a good park design out of all of those pieces. So next slide. Some of the City of Boston priorities, we're trying to expand walkable access to parks. We want to have a certain number of parks in different neighborhoods so that everybody can get to a park easily. Within that, we're trying to address equity issues. Our lower income neighborhoods experiencing a shortage of parks, probably we're trying to increase that. Climate resilience. Right now, the temperature is going up. So how to create shady spaces, trees that will survive. All of this is a part of healthy communities. We want people to get out and enjoy their parks, and community building as well. So that's providing spaces for people to collect and talk to each other, get to know each other. So next slide. These work very well with our parks and recreation goals, where we're trying to have parks that are accessible and available to all, create a diverse, balanced, and efficient mix of uses. This is like, if we've got something down the street at a different park, we don't want to necessarily replicate that use 2 blocks away in a separate park. That kind of thing. Meaningful and inclusive community engagement, adaptive and resilient landscapes. That's sort of speaking to global warming, trying to create adaptive and resilient landscapes for climate change, and to promote connections as well. So that's, again, more community connections. We can move on to the next slide. I'm going to pass this off now to Jen Ng from KMDG, our design group, and she is going to start walking you through the rest of the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here. WOW gave us a real head start with the sort of site research with their Youth Participatory Action Research project over the summer of 2020. And they sent us a YouTube video which summarized the research and also a lot of the interviews that were happening over the course of the summer. We walked away with some key understandings. First is that there's a real priority for physical and social safety, that we need to make the park feel safe, and that it's a public health oriented space. So that means lots of clear lighting, that there's water or cooling stations, trees and shade, exercise, that the park is a welcoming space, and that really the whole design process is one of inclusion and empowerment. And that means that there's intergenerational inclusion, that we're talking to kids and to elderly, and that it's really a place that everyone feels like they have some sense of ownership. So back in November, we did have our first community meeting. We had it on site, and it was like a sort of like that perfect Saturday morning. It was really nice for us to all be together. And we had a few different stations. So we had a sort of interactive artwork station where we had these 6-foot long murals, and we had different questions on them. So what is important to your neighborhood was an example, and people could add stickers or sticky notes or take notes or add sketches. And it was a great way just to get a lot of feedback in one place. We had these activity books, which also had a set of questions, and it had a blank plan of the new park. And so we asked people to draw in ideas. And then we had a wishing fence. So we had these luggage tags. We asked people to write down their wish for the park. And then by the end of the Saturday morning, we could kind of see all these wishes come together. We also had a survey, which we hosted through Google Forms, open conversation. So if anyone didn't feel like writing anything down or didn't want to participate in an activity, they could just come up to one of us and give us an idea. After that Saturday, we reached out to the Joseph Lee School and we met with 3rd and 5th grade classes. We talked about what landscape architecture is and this sort of project, and we asked them for their ideas. We also gave them activity books, and this is a screenshot of some of those notes that we took with them. And so we walked away from that with just such a great set of inspiring quotes. And so we wanted to share some of those thoughts. My wish for Norwell Park is that it becomes a place to build a stronger neighborhood. I wish for a beautiful place with trees and flowers where neighbors can meet and rest together. One 5th grader, when we said what will make this park special, they said it's a place for my mom to sit on a bench. 3rd grader said that their wish was to have the best day. And so it really shows us that this is a really should be a place for everyone. It should be intergenerational, and that there's a real sense of community. Based off of the Google Forms survey, we had about 31 responses. And so this really reinforced what we were seeing from the youth research, that over 50% of the people who responded said that they have at least one kid under the age of 18 in their household. Many people said that they know of elderly relatives or neighbors that would use this park, and that many people are passing by the property on their way to the Talbot station. 30 responses is pretty good, but this is a great way for us to get a lot of data. So we have another Google Forms coming off of this community meeting. Please respond, give us some feedback. It's really helpful. So throughout that survey, that first survey, we did ask a number of questions. Some of them were, please choose your top 5 activities or features that are most important to you. What is missing in your neighborhood parks that you would like to see? What's your wish? And so we took all that feedback and we tried to see if there were any trends. So all of this little text that you probably can't read along the horizontal line is all the different options or responses that people gave us, and then you can see the quantities. And so coming off of that Saturday session, there was a real priority for community event space, playful spaces, trees and shade, play features, fitness, and water and cooling stations. And then when we met with the 3rd and 5th graders, we added their votes, which you can see in the sort of light green goldish color. And with their responses, play feature takes the number 2 spot, and fitness comes out, and seating comes in. And so there wasn't only just one kid who was saying that they really wanted their parents to have a nice place to sit. It was a sort of reoccurring theme. And so when we met on Saturday in November, we were really talking about the space in this dotted red area. That's about 11,000 square feet. And then since then, B mentioned that we have expanded our park zone to also include the Park Street extension. And that gives us an extra 2,200 square feet that we can consider when we think about what the park design could be. So the future park is made up of 4 empty parcels. Those parcels actually have a property line that goes through the edge of our park. And so there's a bit of space that is on MBTA property. And we met with MBTA back in December, and they said that we should continue ahead with their plans for the park, but they were really concerned with issues of safety relative to their trains. So things like basketball, football, frisbee, that would be moments of concern because they would be nervous that maybe a ball would go over the fence and hit a train while it's moving. So they did require another level of review, but I think that it makes sense and we're coordinating with them. For the Park Street extension, there's a few things to consider. So there's the MBTA sign, and then there's the T sign that we need to keep and relocate. And then there's the existing bike racks and blue bikes. We also need to maintain a clear and safe path of travel to the MBTA platform. I should also note that every time you see these, the Norwell plan, Norwell Street is always tracking on the bottom, and then the MBTA platform is always tracking on the top of the diagram. And so north is actually pointing to the right. So this is a combined sunshade study that shows you sunshade over the course of the year. And this, again, reinforces what we heard at the first community meeting, is that this is just a really hot spot. It's really hot, it's really sunny, and there are some moments of shade, but that's really happening along the edges. This project is also going to be along a future Fairmont Greenway connection. It's going to be a 9-mile walking and biking route, and some of the goals of the Greenway are things like traffic calming, wider sidewalks, and improved intersection crossings. And I think that this park is really going to help achieve some of those goals and connect it to a wider network. During the survey, we asked about what were the most used neighborhood parks. And so this captures those: Ripley Playground, Elmhurst Street Park, Roberts Playground, and Harambee Park. These all land within that sort of half-mile radius, and you can see with the images that these are really sort of classic playgrounds. We wanted to offer a scale comparison. So when you're looking at the options that we're going to present and you're trying to get a sense of scale and trying to get a sense of how big the space is, we thought Ripley Playground could be a good comparison. It's about the size of the play area and the basketball court. So try not to think about the tennis courts when you're trying to get a sense of scale. So based off of these conversations and this feedback, we developed 4 project goals to provide a space for the community to gather and to celebrate across generations, to provide opportunities for flexible and structured play, to provide relief from heat through trees and shade, and to provide a space that feels safe and inclusive to all members of the community. So we're going to show 3 options this evening. Within those options, we have a kit of parts. And so every option has a community event space, every option has trees and shade and a playful space, and every option has a spot for local art. That doesn't mean that Parks and Recreation is going to be curating that art. It's really giving you as the community a framework to continue to curate local art on a rotational basis. And then each option also includes a unique element. So that could be a water or cooling element, communal tables, or a light feature or landform. And so the type of feedback that we're looking for tonight is sort of a mix and match. We're not necessarily looking for a winner, but if there is a winner in your mind, let us know. That's good feedback too. But because we're giving you 3 options, 3 different ways to think about community space, 3 different ways to think about playful space, it's really helpful to see kind of what's landing for you and what you think could use improvement. So here are the 3 options. I'm going to give you a quick overview. The first option we're calling one room. So program and play and gathering are all shared in one space. In concept 2, we separate play and gathering into 2 separate spaces. And then in concept 3, we break it down even further into 3 separate rooms. So in the first plan, we wanted to work with how the park was kind of being used informally right now. So where we have the temporary tent, we thought we would formalize that with a much larger shade structure and create a gathering space where people seem to be naturally congregating, and that we would anchor that gathering space with perhaps some water play. We would maintain a large portion of open lawn, and then at the end of that open lawn have a raised deck. And that deck could be a social space with some sort of big, generous stairs or seating steps that you could sit on, and that we would have a sort of very healthy planted buffer with trees along the edges and a trike or walking loop that takes you around the perimeter. We did a quick circulation diagram. So what this is showing you is where the points of entry are and where the fences are. So you're maintaining the sidewalk that takes you to the MBTA platform. And then you have 2 major entry points and then an activity loop. And that activity loop can be a walking loop or a trike loop. It could be a scooter loop. It can be lots of different things. And so again, program is shared in one space. And so the sort of programmable space is about 196 feet long. So if you think about a typical basketball court, that is about 94 feet long by 50 feet wide. So in this option, your sort of main space is about just over 2 basketball courts long. And so you can imagine that sort of on the everyday or on Saturday mornings, maybe you're at this communal picnic table, maybe you get the long view so you can watch your kids maybe play in the water misters, play on the open lawn, play on the deck. You can kind of see everything very easily. Maybe when there is a big event or you have live music, your performers get the choice of performing on the deck or underneath the shade structure, and that open lawn is really used as a way to get some free play in. So here are some ideas of what that could look like. We have, again, that sort of community picnic table that's like really long and quite inviting, something that works for many small groups or a large group. A shade structure that is open on all sides, but maybe becomes a framework for a community message board. A water play that has misters. So maybe you want to just cool off really quickly and walk through the misters, or maybe you want to get really wet and spend a lot of time there. And just trying to give you options to do both. The open lawn and the flex deck, and what we call the triking loop, which should be really graphic and like fun colors and something that seems really welcoming. For the second option, we separate out play and gathering into 2 separate rooms, and we separate them by a landform, which means it's a small hill. The idea is that maybe kids can climb up this hill and you can get a little bit of a better perch to see over the chain link fence and see the trains passing by, and that maybe that landform becomes part of play. And then also divided by a stage with an integrated shade structure over it. So this idea that then that opens up to a larger plaza, maybe a grove of trees with picnic tables in it. And then that activity loop starts to become a little bit more dynamic than just a straight line and moves through this planted space. Maybe it's a garden walk, maybe it's a shade walk, but it has this sort of opportunity for art to come in the future. So in this option, you can see how the fences start to work and how you can have now 3 somewhat equally spaced, equally sized entrances, and then that activity loop that starts to become a little bit more dynamic. And then here you can see how those 2 rooms start to get dimensioned out. So the play space is about the same width of a basketball court, and then the gathering space is about just a little bit over a length of a basketball court. And so this play space is probably big enough to have 2 or 3 small features or 1 larger feature. And then again, you also have the landform and how you can integrate play with that. One thing I wanted to mention real quick is that we are interested in sort of, does this room work? Does this option work? We're also interested in the finer points. So if you want to rearrange or suggest rearrangements within the rooms, that's also very helpful feedback. So we placed the stage in the middle of this option because it was different from the other options. But if you think that the stage would be better suited on the north side, further away from play, with a little bit more space, that is really good feedback. And we're really interested in that type of feedback as well. So here are some ideas of what these elements could look like. Again, like smaller play elements would include things like spinners or steppers, seesaws, sort of more musical elements such as chimes or rainmakers. This idea of the slide and the landform, how we can start to integrate climbing holds or large rock features, different ways to get up this landform. The idea of a garden walk. The idea of a shade structure on top of a stage. Now, we're not saying that this is what it would look like if we were to proceed within a stage with integrated shade structure. We would want to really design that for you, but we included this image because you kind of start to get a sense of what it's like when the trees are within that gathering space, and how the shade structure could be used for live music or maybe a framework for movie night. And then the flex plaza and a grove with picnic tables. Now, this image is showing movable tables and chairs. And one thing that we're learning working with B and Parks and Recreation is that we really want to be looking more for a suite of fixed furniture, and that's going to be much more durable in the long term in terms of maintenance. So this last option, we break down those rooms further into 3 separate rooms. So you have a shade structure with maybe some custom lighting that starts to really reinforce this idea of a room, an open lawn, and then a play overlook. So in that first option, you'll recall that we had a smaller social deck, and here we're taking all of the play and we're elevating it to make it a little bit higher and create some elevation change. And then we're managing that elevation change with what we're calling social steps. And you'll see that it's really kind of like an informal amphitheater. The other thing that is part of this scheme is that we're keeping the chain link fence in its current location, and we're suggesting that we maintain this for art as it is now. So things like the Black Lives Matter exhibit, that's really powerful and actually takes quite a bit of length. And so if that's something that we want to keep, this is an option that offers that. This is circulation. So here, different from the others, is that the gathering space is actually totally open on two sides. And so there are two arrows, but the idea is that the gathering space is as permeable as possible. And then you have more of a sort of standard width entrance on the northern side. And then that activity loop becomes even more dynamic and more loopy in this final option. So we have those 3 rooms, and in this scenario, these 3 rooms are about the width of a basketball court. And then within that planted buffer, we have these sort of 4 fitness pods, thinking about some of the WOW early research around exercise equipment and some of that early community feedback that we received. So even though there are 3 rooms, it's important to note that the open lawn can be used as overflow or flex, depending on what the event is. So let's say it's a great Saturday morning and everyone is out playing. Then all of a sudden the social steps and the open lawn become an extension of play. Let's say that there's dancing on the plaza or live music, and there's an event that's set up underneath the shade structure. Then the open lawn becomes that spill out, and the sort of social steps or informal amphitheater become another way to view that event. So here's an idea of what that could look like, this idea of the sort of the lights to create that sense of a room, and then that the open lawn is right next to the plaza. And then that the play overlook has some sort of interest or elevation to it as well, that the play feature allows you to get up as high as possible. The fitness loop, and then the social steps. So this idea that it is a place to play and to frolic, but it's also a place to see and be seen. And so thinking about what does play mean as you get older and you start to enter your teenage years. So we have showed a lot of different play ideas. We're hoping that to get some feedback from you on which ones are interesting to you, which ones you think we should try to incorporate. So the interactive feature, so thinking about sound chimes or the rainmakers, water play, so those Mr. Poles, natural play elements. Do you have a preference for sort of these wood pieces or metal and net, or even plastic pieces? Do you have a preference for a single large feature or multiple small features? This idea of an open lawn, the landform slide and trike loop, and through all of these options, we feel pretty confident that we can integrate this idea of discovery play, that play isn't something that you go to once and you kind of know what it's all about, that it's something that play is continuously revealed to you over the course of many visits and as you get older. So that's where we are right now. Sort of the quick summary. We're looking for some feedback from you on what's working, what could use some improvement. Concept 1 is when play and gather are combined throughout the whole site, and then there's an activity loop around the perimeter. Option 2, or concept 2, is where we separate play and gathering into 2 separate rooms, and then there's a slightly more dynamic activity loop around the edge. And then concept 3 is where we have 3 distinct rooms and a slightly smaller activity loop, but one that is quite dynamic.
That was great, Jen. Thank you so much for walking us through all that. And I see there are a couple of people who have contributed questions to the chat. And so we can just start off there. And then people can raise their hands, and I think Christine is able to unmute you. And so just quickly, it says, can there be water along the walking trail, like water misters? I think, there was another question, and there's only one concept that has a cooling station in it. And this is an interesting project because we have a certain amount of funding right now, and we're hopeful that we can get a little bit more, or maybe a lot more. We're trying for whatever we can get. And so our goal here is to understand what the top priorities are. And we will try and include as many of those items as we can afford. And we're going to keep the project moving forward so that we can still be on target as much as we can schedule wise. If funding doesn't come through, we don't want to have just waited for 4 months and develop nothing. So I see Andrew giving us a 2 thumbs up. So we're trying to keep things moving. But so the process here is, if you guys really want water and misting, and that seems like a very a strong priority, then that's great. And we totally want to hear that. And if there are other strong priorities, preferences, things that we're showing that you absolutely hate, we totally want to hear that too. So if anyone wants to, we got some raised hands. Let's hear it.
Andrew and team can unmute themselves.
All right, I'm here with 2 of our future users of the park, and my daughter Lathia has some comments she would like to make. Go ahead.
What I was thinking is that maybe like when you go on the playground and you say a special word, the playground turns into a water playground and a pool.
You say a magic word, it turns into a water park. That's a good idea.
The cool thing about these misters is that there's a secret button, and you can press the secret button and the misters will go off.
What?
Do you think that's a good idea?
Anything else you want to add?
No.
You watched the presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Naomi, anything you want to add? All right, that's a no. Oh, a pool. We would like a pool. Okay.
Cool.
Throwing that in for B to find another couple $1 million.
With the water slide.
At the water slide.
It's I love those ideas. Those are wonderful ideas. I'm not sure if we can do that, but we could definitely do something with water. Water is definitely something that we are feeling in the crowd tonight is a big issue. So that is great to hear. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Tina.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering very specifically if the stationary seating in concept 2, can we add that to concept 3, sort of in this space with, for events?
Yeah.
That I think is the first room. I don't know if there are any alternatives to creating shade there. Like, it might not be possible to add trees. I don't know if like a pergola or something, but I'd like to see the seating in concept 2 be added to concept 3. I think that would be helpful. Maybe not 3 rows, but maybe 2. And then the only other question, I don't know if it would fit, but maybe sort of embedded along these trees in the loop, if there could be maybe some kind of fitness equipment, maybe like 1 or 2 things sort of nestled in between, if that's possible. Walking is great, but like, we don't have, I don't know anywhere in any of our parks in the city, particularly in Deutsche, where there's actually like fitness equipment. I have seen that along the Esplanade, and I thought that was really nice downtown. So if we could add, even if it's 1 or 2 sort of fitness equipment things sort of along that path, or in the middle, I think. But I definitely love concept 3 a little bit more than concept 2, even though I think concept 2 is great.
That's helpful. A sort of a mix and match between 2 and 3.
Yes.
That sounds good. And helpful feedback.
Naven, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay? It's
A
the
little
first time.
low, but yes.
Can you, I want to first start by thanking Ms. B because of all the outreach she has done. Thank you. Um, and in all of the pictures, the square building you see is ours. So we have, we're very excited for the community around that we'll be having this space going forward. Um, and it's actually over the past year or so, it's gotten a little bit more used um, than previously, and there's some work being done there. I just had a question on the trees, especially adjacent to the properties, and making sure that they are not um, blocking any of the light for the folks living in the units, and also if there are any concepts in place, um, even though making it a community space, that somehow there could be a structure of blocking noise so that it doesn't affect the surrounding folks living around this park, um, and doesn't turn out into something uh, where it's like they can't have a good living space.
That is a great point, Naveen, and I'm super glad that you joined us tonight, and we can definitely continue to work with you about the edge condition that our park has with your building, because we understand it's like we're right there, and we don't want people who live in your building to feel like they're looking out their window into like someone's face, and vice versa. You know, it's like people in the park, you know, anyway. We're going to need to strike a balance between creating a screen and not creating a place where people feel comfortable doing illicit activities. Like in my experience with parks, if you give like a dense shrub, you know, like a cedar arborvitae thing, people can sometimes use the bathroom there. So I think we are definitely happy to work with you and sort of run some ideas by you, sort of what you think would work for the building. I think as far as shade goes, we don't want to shade the windows, but we also do want to, providing shade will cool the building and it will cool the park too. So there's sort of the flip side of both of those. I don't know if the designers have any responses for those.
I think that we're open to you know, if there's particular windows that you want to make sure stay really light and sunny, you know, we will adjust tree placement to make sure that you have the views that you want, and that we're working to make sure that we're not negatively impacting your light, and that we are locating stages or shade structures that may be gathering spaces in a way that doesn't keep you up at night, which we wouldn't want to do.
Thanks, Elisa.
Yes, hi, how's everybody doing today? I wanted to say first and foremost, love all of the designs. They're very nice. And the main things that I wanted to make sure I highlighted were, love the staging area. I think that's going to be really important for our community. And definitely love the walk around area. It's in all three designs. I just wanted to say kudos for all of them. Whichever one you put up there for me would be great. I'm gonna be honest with you. So great job, everybody who's working on the park committee as well. Thanks.
Too positive. We don't have anywhere to go. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you.
That's great.
Gardner family, my good friend Dustin.
Hey everyone. I wanted to say I really like concept 2 and 3 the best. I think, you know, if there's some configuration of those two with with the stage in concept 3, that area, I mean, I'd prefer for that not to be paved, but that would also be grassy area as well. One thing I did want to note, which I'm excited that we have what was, I think, Public Works owned space, the drive-in area. I'm glad we have that we can do what we want with it, but I do think that we should keep some kind of pull-in space just functionally for, like, that's whenever we have stuff going on, that's the only place to pull in for supplies. So like if people were bringing stuff for programming at the park or for cleanup, it's like the Norwell is just super busy. So to have at least some level of a pull-in space there for vehicles with supplies, I think would be really helpful. And maybe that plays best to concept 3 if the stage is right there. If we had some kind of a performance coming in, it'd be right there for supplies as opposed to if it was flipped on the opposite side. Did you want to say? That's out there.
That is good feedback. Thank you, Dustin and Gardner family.
Renee?
Great job with the presentation. A couple things came to mind. Well, when Dustin was speaking, and I think I remember when we first started talking about this park thing, and then getting that extra space that we couldn't use it for parking. And I'm imagining in concept 3, if an area was capable of being just pulled in, that the people going to the T will dominate that use as pulling in. Because I mean, that's kind of what they do right now. And as you said, the street is busy. And then people getting a ride to the T or the purple line, whatever. They want to pull in and jump out and whatever. So I think I'm just a little concerned of how we would still, like, how you guys would provide a space to pull in and not have that be dominated by people just pulling in on a regular everyday thing, not just like, okay, now the park is going to have an event, so we need to pull in to set up and do things. So that's a kind of a concern. The other concern that I was thinking of, I'm happy that the owner for that house joined. I see, so like in concept 1, you guys are maintaining the sidewalk, and so it's kind of like maybe it doesn't look too much bothered, the building kind of. But I like in concept 2 and 3 how the sidewalk, you have the people entering, going to and from the train station is kind of passing through the park a little bit, like that they do it the most, I guess, in concept 2. And I really like that. I like the idea of like pulling the community in, or like the people who ride the T every day to and from, they kind of get a little teaser of sorts, like a little glimpse into the park, more so than concept 1. And I think that kind of promotes the community aspect of the park. Whereas if it's just kind of closed off, it might seem a little like out of sight, out of mind, kind of, unless you go out of your way to discover. It's not necessarily going to be something that is on people's mind, like that is accessible per se. So that came to mind as well.
That's a good point. I was going to say, like with option 1, you kind of walk around the park out and then across and in. And so with option 2 and 3, you're definitely creating more of an experience of walking through the park, and creates more of a visual buffer from the windows, and helps to create a little bit more park separation. And I'm wondering if that starts to strike the balance.
Yeah, I'm not sure though, and maybe the owner would opine. I'm not sure how, I don't know, if the trees are gonna be blocking the light, or I don't know how, but I mean, but the trees would also be giving them some privacy as well. So it's as I think B said, it's a tricky balance.
I also just wanted to respond a bit, Renee, to your, mulling over the idea of having some vehicular space. And sometimes what we do is provide like a mountable curb, which is basically like instead of your standard vertical street curb, the curb is sort of on an angle. So it's not like a driveway, it's not something that really encourages cars to pull in like the way, if you're driving by and dropping someone off at the T, you're not going to like drive up into the site. Like it doesn't look welcoming in that regard. But if you are pulling in with a car and dropping off a bunch of stuff, you could make that. So that is something that we might consider. I guess one of the concerns is that like, does the park ever become known as a place where you can just pull in real quick while you run across the street to the deli? And it's like, we don't want that. We don't want to mix. We don't want that gray area really of like encouraging car traffic where we've got people. So it's definitely good to hear that this is something that's helpful to have vehicular access. And I think we'll need to do some more thinking about it. So thank you. Good thoughts.
Thank you, Andrew and family.
Hi, I just wanted to, after the younger citizens of the Hale household went, I wanted to add just a couple of my thoughts. And I also want to echo the thanks that everybody's given to the team. And this is the culmination of, or we're in process of like years of work and meetings to make this happen. And I'm just really, really excited to see it happen. I'm excited to see the people on this call. I have spent literally hundreds of hours in playgrounds over the last 6 years with my girls, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about playground design and stuff. So I do have a few thoughts. One thing is, and I've already expressed this to the design team, but one thing that I've noticed a lot is that kids, particularly with the sort of traditional plastic plug and play structures, that they get bored of that really quick. And that's why you have kids like running up the slides and stuff and so forth. And so I think I know that Jen and the team really agrees with that, but I think like if we can think of that and conceptualize this space as one where play can happen almost anywhere because of our design features, the trees. Maybe we have benches there are some benches and some of them are sort of logs that they could climb on that people could sit on, but that also could be play spaces. So conceptualizing these design elements as playing multiple features. So like, for example, I love the trail that we have going around. Maybe that could be a garden trail, a shade trail, a trike trail, and also a place where, there's some features for people to work out, do some pull-ups and so forth. So we're doing multiple things with just one design feature. I love that. And so I do want to put in a little bit of a plug for concept 3. Sorry for the background noise, guys. A little bit of a plug for concept 3, in that we have a play feature, we have a sort of bandstand and a stage, which I think is really important. We have maybe some exercise equipment and stuff like that. But I would also just maybe advocate for that. If we do go with a concept 3, I like having the stage on one side. And I think maybe rather than a plaza or something, we could expand that lawn. And so it just kind of like the lawn leads, the plaza is the lawn, which leads into this kind of gathering area, which like leads into the play area. And maybe there's features kind of all along that, which can help serve for that. The other thing I would say is, and I discussed this briefly with the design team, but I love the idea of multiple entrances. So one kind of right there at the main kind of Park Street, Talbot Ave entrance, but maybe one down Norwell Street. The one challenge that I see is, as everybody that lives in this neighborhood knows, is people go flying through there and there's a really narrow sidewalk. And so what I want to say is we should not let the cars win. and we should instead conform traffic to this park space. And so I do wonder if maybe there's more room, and this is a conversation with B, with the folks at the city, but can we do even more dramatic curve bump outs, paint the sidewalk, put up a huge banner, like something that basically just announces to everybody that like, you are going to slow down here. And it's going to be real slow because there's kids who are coming and going from this little area. And we want to make sure that this is super safe, and we prioritize this space over you driving 35 or 40 or 45 miles an hour through Norwell Street for 5 seconds. So that would be, I don't know whether that would again be a partnership and a larger conversation, maybe have to involve Public Works, but I would love to advocate for that as well. So just want to throw that in.
Those are some great ideas. And I have to say that because Public Works has given us funding to include their street end, they are going to be much more integrated into this project than they normally are with the Parks project, which is like, sometimes we go to them, sometimes we don't, they stamp our drawings and that's it, right? So yeah, those are all interesting ideas. And I think also, like, as far as Public Works goes, Public Realm, there are a lot of forward-thinking people who work in those departments. So great ideas, and we'll see what we can push. And if you could give us some tangible ideas, we can come up with some of our own, but I think also it's helpful to hear from you guys, what you just shared. So thank you.
LaQuisha.
Hi guys. So first off, I'd like to say thank you to the design team and to Miss B for, doing a fabulous job over the last few years of helping us. A big thanks to TPL for also helping us secure funding and also helping out with the design as well. So and another thing, big thanks to all the wowers who showed up tonight, because I feel like you guys really showed out and really came to let your opinions be known, which is really important because we've been working on this. We got established in 2016. We met on the corner that Andrew always likes to talk about, the corner of Norwell and Park Street. And this was just like a dream for us. And now we're actually building this park. And the fact that we're working with so many different partners across the city, it's going to be amazing when it actually does open. But a couple of my comments would be, I do like concept 3. I do like that we brought up some issues in regards to parking, because I did think about, when we are like loading things in and out, we have multiple cars, different things of that nature, that it can be difficult with Norwell Street being a really busy street. Even with the speed humps, it still is a very busy street. So yeah, definitely some more safety precautions would be really nice to have. Also, so I agree with that. I also like the seating area in 2, and didn't know if that could be incorporated into 3 in some kind of way, and definitely providing more grass, because I feel like it's already a heat spot, and anything that we put there is just gonna, draw more heat, even if it's one of those rubber things that they put in every other park. I just feel like, we're still not getting enough greenery in 3. Also, I would like for the stage to maybe be kitty cornered. So that way the people that's living in the house on Norwell Street, are not being directly stared at every single time. And maybe it's at an angle a little bit more. And then maybe in concept 3, you could still put the little hill, which kind of filters down into either grassy area where we're still kind of giving the kids a little something in that particular space if they want to sit and watch the show or whatever it is that we have kind of going on there. I do like having shade. I like the long communal table. I think that's a pretty cool idea. We do host meetings, and we hope to be able to host them outside at some point in time. But we also, another thing that I think we would need is something to store all of our things in, because whenever we are we have chairs, Adirondack chairs and different things like that, and it's really difficult to find a place to put them. We kind of lock them up, but it'll be nice to be able to store them somewhere in the wintertime so that, we're not kind of bombarded with figuring out where we're going to put everything or leaving it out there all winter. But those are just, I guess, a few of my thoughts in regards to the designs. But yeah, between 2 and 3, you know, with a mixture. And I do like the exercise equipment. And I think I put it in the chat and I said it was Dorchester High, which I'm totally showing my age, but I think it's like Tech Boston Academy or something like that now, where they have the exercise equipment, which I think is really cool. I do like going over there. It's kind of like stationary. It's like on the edges. So it does offer some space for people to actually exercise. So I think that's cool. But those are my additions. Thank you.
I'm gonna go check out Tech Boston Academy because that sounds cool. Thanks for that reference.
And the storage is on our list. And then I think Renee, you brought up that, or maybe it was someone from WOW brought up that during sort of these bigger events that porta potties are also brought in. So any of these like sort of technical constraints or sort of logistics that you need in order to keep the park functioning the way that you need it to, absolutely let us know, and we'll make sure that we're accommodating those things.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I think Russell Holmes, if he's still in the house, is Russell Holmes still here?
He is.
He is. Would you like to take a minute just to say a quick hi? I didn't realize you had joined. I would have given you the mic.
No problem, B. I've been here from the beginning, but I've heard everything. So no, didn't want to interrupt. I am not getting in front of the Gardner family hand there. So I'm going to leave this alone. They've already said everything, Andrew and all of them. I just wanted to I guess at this point, say, I was out there with LaQuisha again today. It is a fast street and people ignore us. So everything we can to protect the kids on that street. And I will continue to fight. As Andrew said, want to hear more. Be it asked me, how can I get some money? I'm looking for, if we do the American Rescue Plan, second funding, and the Economic Development Bill, to try to get some funds that way as well. So you guys keep it up, and I'll be here for the 3rd meeting as well, but I do have to jump to another Zoom. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
Gardner family.
Thanks, everybody. This is just so great. So exciting. I want to echo some suggestions that people already made, and just, yeah, and call them out a little bit more. So I agree that somewhere between concept 2 and 3 feels like the most useful kind of design. And I think as much as we can, I want to echo like more green space, definitely, you know, more grass, less pavement, and all of that good stuff. And as much as we can, like, as we're thinking about separate rooms, I like that idea, but also with a way that they flow together. And I think we're getting that in concept 3, where, you know, there's clear like overflow space, and the social steps can become seating, you know, where people can actually see maybe what's happening on the stage. And I really like that. I also though really like the landform idea in question 2. I think that adds a really fun kind of element, where, and if we end up going that route with a landform, I think being thoughtful about what's on the either side of that and how it can be kind of useful on both sides. So maybe one side is like, you know, more obviously for play, although the whole thing could be, and maybe the other side is like opportunity for seating to overlook, you know, a stage area or performance area or something of that nature. Absolutely love the garden walk idea, and that being and that being multi-use and incorporating seating and cooling too. Like maybe we have the misters along the garden walk, or something like that, so that it's less, while it can be a playful feature, it also, you know, can be intergenerational. And the other thing that I wanted to say about, and I love the idea of incorporating play kind of throughout the space and not necessarily just like a play feature, although that will be important, but also just thinking creatively about even the small things. Like I think Renee had mentioned before, like drums maybe along the path, or some other musical features or something like that that feel like discoveries, you know. And then I think while I love more trees, I think that the grove in concept 2 might take away from the usefulness, the way that those are kind of set up there. So thinking, you know, just critically about kind of the placement of trees, to not interrupt the potential uses of the space.
I've been listening and keeping my eye on the chat. And this is my time to be like the big downer, and having to do with garden lushness and flowers. And we parks are not adept at maintaining garden areas. And so there are a couple things, you know, that we've sort of touched on, like furnishings a little bit, like we were showing some fixed furniture, and there was a couple of like, you know, movable chairs. Like these things are items that like we could do a garden space. We could have like a nicely planted path. If we understand from you guys, ostensibly WOW, because you guys are the cohesive group here, that you would maintain it, that you have an interest in gardening and would be willing to, you know, because our guys will, very well meaning, really hard to tell the difference sometimes between a native plant and a weed, and they weed whack the whole thing, and you're like, oh, that's really depressing. That's happened. So I don't want to misrepresent that we would be able to like maintain a lovely lush garden space. And if you guys are interested in having something like that, we could totally plant it. You know, like provide the plants and put them in and make them look good at the outset, but it would be on you guys to keep it looking good in a way that you would like it to be, you know? So you don't have to give me like an answer about this or anything. We could just put this in the hopper and let me know. But these elements that require more expertise, you know, like horticultural knowledge, that lots of our guys are awesome. They're really energetic. They're very positive, but it's not always a strong suit. So, and Andrew's volunteering to garden. That's awesome, Cheryl. Okay, cool.
That's what a friends group's for. Be
True. Okay, but you know, it's just I need to make it clear that like that's that would be our expectation in installing it. So that's awesome.
Tina.
So I just wanted to name, I don't remember the gentleman who mentioned it, but in terms of the slow streets, I don't know if it's possible, but like, you know, the stop signs that kind of light up and blink, I think that if that could be installed, that would be helpful. Or like when it's pressed, they sort of like blink rapidly or something. I don't know how feasible that is, but I think that might be cool. I know that's helped me check where I am when I see those. So that was my first comment. My second comment, for the trees next to the house, if folks are feeling like trees might be like blocking sunlight, I'm wondering if particularly in concept 3, sort of where the sort of stage area abuts the sort of driveway, if maybe a trellis could be put there, that's sort of the height of the stage, or something like that. And if folks thought about it and they were like, we really don't want these trees, or we only want 2, or, you know, we only want 1, but like also don't want people looking at us, I don't know if a trellis would be something that could be useful and beneficial. And then the third comment is I kind of disagree with the last commenter about the sort of trees and the benches in concept 2. I think potentially that could be a good place if we incorporated that to put like what folks were talking about for the young people to like explore. I think the gentleman said something about like logs that are benches or like interactive play, that it might be nice to have that sort of in this sort of tree area. I think kids would like that and it would give them more to hold on to. So I feel like I actually really like that. It's a small site, but you know, as much of that that could be incorporated, I would be in favor of. And then the only other thing I wanted to name is I love the idea of having like young people be able to play throughout. But also I immediately think that this community has a lot of people with dogs. And so don't know that it might be helpful to have like a place that's like for young people. And you know, I'm just thinking safety and like defined space, but also do love the idea of young people being able to go throughout. So I'm fine either way with that. Just wanted to name that this is a dog heavy community, large and small dog heavy community. So that's it.
Thank you, Tina. That's very helpful.
I think that there can be a way if trees and paving is something that the community is really interested in. You know, it doesn't have to be a grove. The grove is a very formal, you know, it's a very formal design tool. There's a grid, there's a set spacing, and that can take up a certain amount of space, and may sort of dictate a type of functionality. And so it sounds like, Tina, you're really interested in the fact that there are trees and paving. There's a place to sit where you're in the shade, not necessarily in a garden, and that there are ways that you can interact within that. And I think that we can certainly study that and not limit functionality.
Thanks, Jen. Renee?
Yeah, so I'm remembering at the beginning, the very, very beginning of this process, when we were just brainstorming and stuff for the park, one of the ideas floated was how, yeah, there are a lot of dogs in the community, and should we have like a portion of it as a dog park? And I'm just realizing that that's not really reflected anywhere here. And I guess what comes to mind is, fine, if people come with their dogs, people aren't always very good about cleaning up after their dogs. They're not. But since it's a reality that we have a lot of dogs in the community, would it make sense for us to have a designated area where they can go and let their dogs play and run and do whatever? And hopefully, you know, strongly say that cleaning up after your pet is a requirement. But if it's kind of in one area, it's a little bit more, you know, I don't know, manageable for the rest of the community. I'm just kind of wondering if we should try and mark an area for for dogs to be able to play freely and run around. And then also we should probably have those bags, a little area that is refilled. I don't know if it's by us, WOW, or parks maintenance. I don't know how you guys do this in maybe other parks, since more and more people have dogs as part of their family. So.
Dogs are definitely a thing in Boston for sure. And it's a challenge in some ways, because if you take the space for dogs, it's no longer usable for people. And so that's what you got to weigh, right? I would argue that I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but there is a square foot minimum that you're supposed to provide. I want to say it's like 500 square feet, which is, don't quote me on that, but there's a minimum that you need to provide in order to give dogs enough space so that it doesn't basically create just like dog fight zone. No one wants that. And we do dog parks when there's a group that wants to maintain it, right? And like replace the bags and like police neighbors and tell them to pick up the poop kind of thing. So I think, we haven't, it's definitely been brought up. You're totally right. I think the numbers as of now haven't brought it up to the top. And it's one of those programs that like, it kind of needs to be a real priority in the community in order to move forward with that. So if
I was gonna ask if I have to sneeze.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thanks. If the parks that you guys highlighted in the community at the start of the presentation, do any of those parks have are there any dog parks or is there anywhere in the neighborhood for people to take their dogs? I know we have some dog owners on this call. I'm not a dog owner, so I really don't know. So if you guys, and is that something you guys would want, or should we not carve out space in the park?
So we do have a question on our survey, which you will all see the QR code and the bit.ly link for on the next slide. But there is a question that says what's missing. And so if the people on this call or other WOW members or other neighborhood or neighbors are feeling like we really missed the dog park opportunity, please let us know. The park is rather small, so it would have to be a priority over another element. And I see in the chat that potentially the lot down the street, 201 Norwell, could possibly take on a dog park option. And then maybe you get the best of both worlds.
Thank you for raising that. And I think we'll keep our ears on high alert to sort of see what the support seems like for that. Downer, sorry, looking at the chat, Downer also has a dog run as well. So there are some in the general vicinity.
Should also say this is a beautifully active chat, like just everyone with all these ideas and these links and like coming together to make a maintenance crew in all of 3 minutes. Like, I mean, it's just like an incredible chat. Having done a couple of these Zoom meetings, I feel like there are not as many communities who are so wonderfully collaborative.
Yeah. The park is going to be handicap accessible. Yes, all of our parks are accessible. Any sort of sloped surface will be something that a wheelchair or a stroller or a walker can get up. And we're going to try to incorporate any play activities that could be accessible from the ground as well. Yep. So that's always on our radar. So thank you for, I think Roger Wood asked that. I think Darius had.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Excellent job. And I agree with all the comments and for great feedback, not so much for the dog park aspect of it, but maybe just a thought, maybe a billboard or some, maybe not a plaque, but maybe more than a plaque to maybe highlight historic features of the neighborhood, or maybe a place for a monument, something of that sort. But check out this or check out that. These are the events and bands in town, in the park. Meetings, local neighborhood meetings. Some more announcements can be made so people going to the train or hanging out can understand a little bit more what's happening in the community. This might be a way to fulfill that community pillar of the park design.
That's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
I wonder if there's like an interpretive element that we include along with a message board or something like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, if we have a message board that has a space for sort of ongoing or current events or things that are happening around the neighborhood, and then there's also a portion of that that is something that's a little bit more interpretive, that it speaks to the history that you mentioned, Darius. I think I'm a little bit behind in the chat. I think quite a ways ago there was a few consecutive mentions about swings. So swings came up quite a bit with our third graders, and so I think all kids, like, they just love swings. And if that's a priority, we will certainly consider that. It wasn't noted in the sort of play ideas page because you can get 2 or 3 swings, or probably 2 swings, but because the swing actually, it has a pendulum, the fall zone and the safety, the sort of safety circle is quite large. And so swings actually take up quite a bit of space on playgrounds. And we were a little bit concerned that if we suggested a swing, that might be the only major element in terms of play from a space perspective. But if that is important, let us know. There are some swings where we can really minimize that pendulum swing, but that's not as fun, I don't think, for the kids. It kind of is not quite the intent of what kids are getting at when they say swings.
I mean, some of those, they're like group swings, those sort of basket shaped, so circular swings that are still very fun, and they have a shorter pendulum. That might be something that we could look at, because those take up a little bit less room.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Potentially, right?
Tina has her hand up.
This is super quick. I just wanted to say thank you for keeping the sort of artist space or artist wall consistent throughout the designs. I know that that's super important to a lot of us. So just kudos for incorporating that.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, we have to sort of start conceptualizing what that's going to look like. If those are walls that end up, small areas of wall that could be used for either murals or mounting art, or if that's like, what that actually ends up looking like. So if you have ideas on, what that would be, feel free to share those with us. And I also think, hey, Jen, if we could flick to the next slide, I just want to make sure that we catch people. Sorry, this is a quick plug for the Parks Department Open Space and Recreation Plan. We're looking for feedback. It's open for the next couple days, I think. I've got my chat open. Take our survey by May 31st. There we go. And this is like a citywide survey to see if we are providing you guys with enough different recreation areas of open space. So please take that survey. And just as importantly, can we flick to the next one? This is our survey for our park, Norwell Street Park. And so if you go to our project page, we are going to have this available as well. Basket swings. Thank you, LaQuisa. And in the meantime, until we have this up, Christine, I'm just thinking I don't think I coordinated with you putting this up on the project page, which, sorry. But we are going to have this up eventually. And in the meantime, if you scan this with your phone, you can go to the survey and fill it out and let us know what your thoughts are. And if you could also pass the link along, right? If people weren't able to come to the meeting tonight.
So the bit.ly link is in the chat. It came from Hannah. And
thanks. Yes, and I can certainly share this out over email as well. Totally.
And then if you send it to me tonight, I can add it to the project page in the morning.
Okay. Thank you.
Andrew?
Hey, just checking in, for those of us who, like me, have already probably voiced a ton of opinions. Should we also fill out the survey, or like, how are you guys gonna be considering that? You know what I mean?
One of the questions is, did you attend the meeting? And that just gives us an idea of like, you know, if there's duplicate opinions, that kind of thing. But it's also helpful because, you know, when we take when we look at the responses graphically, it's nice to not have to add in manually, like, oh, this many people want this thing. So it's our way of being a little bit lazy, if you could also fill it out. But we have all the responses from tonight. We download the chat as well, and we have all the contact info. So we get it in many different directions, but.
We also ask things a little bit differently. So Andrew, your point about discovery play, there's a sort of question about structured play versus open play. This idea of materiality. So is like sort of wood features, see a lot of like wood images coming through on these links. And so if that's a sort of a common trend, then like that gives us really clear direction for this next meeting about where to focus our studies, because you know there are 1,003 vendors out there, and it would be great to narrow it down to 201.
And the Parks Department is surprisingly flexible. So yeah, it's like
what
previous jobs I've had. I know it's like usually they're like these 3 vendors go with them, but Parks there's a little bit more creativity and flexibility. So any direction you can give us is a help.
You know, we ask specific questions around the shade structure and the stage. And so, and a lot of these questions are coming off of some of the early WOW feedback that we got. And we're trying to, you know, take that feedback and ask that in terms of a question in order to get the whole group to give us some direction.
Cool, great, thanks. I'm glad to know that my aggressive linking in the chat is actually helpful. So anyway.
Awesome. Well, I'm noticing it is 7:31. I feel like everybody that wanted to talk had the opportunity to. Are there any last minute questions or further thoughts before we sign off? No? Okay, awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight's meeting and bringing your thoughts and your listening ears. This has been great. This has been super, super helpful. And I am really excited to see what the design team generates for the 3rd meeting, as I'm sure you guys are too, right? And I will keep everybody updated. First, I will send out links to the survey, links to the project page. Once we have the presentation from tonight is going to be downloadable on the project page as well. So you can share out that PDF too, or just look at it again, right? And be like, wait, I didn't think about this. So anyway, I will deluge you with information, hopefully all in one email. But yeah, thank you guys very much. And I hope you have a wonderful night.